Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another segment of Burnt Coverage, Wide Receiver Edition, Week 11 chapter. I am your host, Joel.
And I'm Curtis.
And we're doing this even though New York State says we can't.
Fuck you, New York. What are you going to do about it?
What?
Yeah, you're going to cancel all my dreams and aspirations.
As the electricity goes out.
Yes, I pay all my bills through fantasy football. It's a sad life I live. Anyway.
Is it?
Yeah. No, it's alright. I'm doing okay.
So, you want to start off? Who do you like?
Yeah, wide receivers. Well, who do I like? You know, there's really just one shining star in the wide receiver galaxy this week. You know, that we have ODB out, we have Antonio Brown out. So it really leaves only one awesome number one target monster just starting to scratch his prime, and that's Mike Evans.
The Jaguars already played on Thursday.
Come on. Mike Evans, 7,300 in DraftKings, 8,000 in FanDuel. And the best thing about Mike Evans is who he's playing against. And yes, it is the Philadelphia Eagles, but who he's really playing against is Mr. Burnt Coverage himself, Byron Maxwell. Byron Maxwell, you are about to have a rude awakening. Mike Evans has been on a tear recently.
On a tear?
On a tear.
Really?
Let's put last 3 weeks.
How are we defining tear?
Let's put last 3 weeks up on the board. 150 yards, pretty good. 126 yards, not too bad. 164 yards, okay.
Against who?
It doesn't matter. You put it up.
It doesn't matter who they play. It's irrelevant
against Byron Maxwell this week is who it is. And once again, no VJax. So here we are, Vincent Jackson, for those not in the Bucks know. Mike Evans is going to be a target hog once again. And if you're like my counterpart on the couch, you think that the Bucks are going to be way down at points in this game. So that means a lot of passes going towards Mike Evans. And Austin Seferian-Jenkins might make a reappearance this week. I've been hearing that for about a month now, so there's no guarantees in that. But even if he does, that actually helps him out a little bit in the middle of the field. He had 8 receptions last week, as anybody...
On how many targets?
Oh God, he's getting a ton of targets, like 16 targets.
Which means a lot of drops.
Yes, actually, this is
a ton of drops.
He is one of the worst defenders in drops in the league. However, Mike Evans is also getting a ton of passes downfield. And so there's a safety there's a corner, he's double teamed. He's the only player that Jameis Winston has really been able to target effectively in the running game. So a lot of attention, but even with all that attention, he's still getting a ton of targets and still putting up monster stat lines. The only problem with Mike Evans is he's been shut out of the end zone in these big games. I expect that to change this week. Look for Mike Evans to just completely destroy the Eagles this week.
So Byron Maxwell may not be a number one cornerback in this league. He's best served as a number 2, but the only thing that counteracts that is Mr. Hands of Steel, Mike Evans. Yes, he's gotten those big numbers, but they have come at what price? They've come on a ton of targets. And if you're only catching half of your targets, you are not a good wide receiver. And so, yes, you don't think the Eagles are going to double team them. Malcolm Jenkins is playing amazing safety play for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I imagine a lot of double coverage on Mike Evans because there's nobody else on Tampa Bay that even remotely scares anyone in the Philadelphia region or any of its suburbs.
So targets for Mike Evans, over or under 10? Over 15.
That's probably right around where I'll be at.
Okay, so 15 targets. I mean,
7 catches.
Well, whatever. On 7 catches, at least 3 of those are going to be deep. He's going to get 100 yards.
No sweat.
Yeah, and he's doing it consistently every week. And Byron Maxwell,
he has balls hitting him in the hands and dropping them.
You know who also gets a lot of targets?
He's a wide receiver. His job is to catch balls that hit him in the hand.
You must not like Jordan Matthews either, because he's the most targeted Eagles receiver in a long time, and he does not put up stats anywhere near what Mike Evans puts up.
A lot of balls as well. However,
However, not as good as Mike Evans by any stretch of the imagination. Mike Evans, in this his second year, has a 200-yard game under his belt. He's obviously a number 1 receiver, obviously.
Because there's no number 2, number 3, or number 4 wide receiver on his friggin' team.
Currently, but when those guys get back, he's going to still put up good numbers.
What guys?
Vincent Jackson?
Vincent Jackson?
Vincent Jackson had 1,000 yards last year.
And 2 touchdowns.
Vincent Jackson has been one of the more consistent wide receivers in the NFL.
Yes. 8 years ago, Vincent Jackson was an amazing wide receiver. Get it out of here, Vincent Jackson.
Vincent Jackson put up 1,000 yards with fucking
watching the game anyway. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
Anyway, Mike Evans, my super duper pick of the week.
Super duper. Well, since you said super duper, who am I going to start with? I'm going to start with a cheaper and more established wide receiver in the NFL. I'm going to go the wide receiver formerly known as Megatron. That is Calvin Johnson, Detroit Lions, going against the Oakland Raiders. So Megatron's actually been averaging 6 catches on 9 targets and averaging 105 yards a game over the last 4 weeks, over his last 4 games, which is ironic because he only has 100-yard game this year. But he's over the last month, he's averaging over 100 yards. Oakland is giving up the 13th most fantasy points to wide receivers, and again, there are going to be a ton of points scored in this game. Oakland has allowed 100 yards and a touchdown to the number 1 wide receiver in 4 of their 9 games this year. He's going for $7,200 on DraftKings. I think it'll be very low ownership play this week just because he's been less than stellar, less than the Megatron that we've come to know. So I think that this is really a good, strong cash play this week.
Yeah, it's hard to ever argue against Calvin, even in a down year for him. If you watched the previous segment, I picked Matt Stafford. So
who's he throwing to exactly?
Yeah, so he does have other targets, but yeah,
no,
obviously
I mean Ebron,
Calvin,
but Golden Tate. Golden Tate does nothing unless Calvin Johnson's hurt.
But yeah, well, Calvin is I think a solid play this week against a shaky at best Raiders secondary. And you might be like, oh, Charles Woodson, defensive player of the year, he's leading the league in interceptions. Yes, but Charles Woodson has a bit of the D'Angelo Hall syndrome, where he'll get a bunch of picks, but he'll also get burnt a ton. So I've actually watched my fair share of Raiders games. I think they're a fun team to watch, and if you haven't watched Raiders games, really this would be a good one to watch because I think it would be a high scoring game. I think Calvin's a safe play, especially in a week where I said 2 of your biggest wide receiver options are out, ODB and Antonio Brown. I like Calvin. It's 7,200 in DraftKings. I mean,
yeah. So he comes in at like number 10 on wide receiver costs. So I think for that price.
You also have Edelman out. He's a different type of receiver, but so there's a wide receivers kind of hurting this week. So to get a player of his caliber and experience against a bad secondary, I think he's a good pick.
Agreed.
So my last pick, you know how I like to throw shit at the wall, as Joel says. I wanted to do a little stack for you, and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention at some point the Patriots offense on a historic rate. So the purpose of this show is not to point out the most obvious plays. We will point out some obvious plays that we think you really need to hear it. Tom Brady is on fire. Best quarterback in the league, I think we can say hands down. Right now, we heard a lot of Aaron Rodgers chatter, but he's kind of fallen off in recent weeks, and Tom Brady has not. Tom Brady is playing. Tom Brady is not my wide receiver pick of the week. I'm getting to it. Tom Brady is playing the Buffalo Bills, who he threw for a pedestrian 466 yards and 3 touchdowns the first time he played them, and that was in Buffalo. This game is in New England. So Brady's going to be throwing. He's good at throwing the ball, and he'll be throwing to one guy, Danny Amendola, who is basically replacing Edelman as their possession slash slot guy. Amendola had 10 catches last week. And another guy he'll be throwing to is Brandon LaFell, who will be lining up outside of him. LaFell is their big play guy in the last 2 weeks. He had a 48-yard reception and he had a 54-yard reception. So right there for their prices, Amendola, LaFell, my stack of the week. 4,000 for Amendola and 4,300 in FanDuel. See the closest there. So 4,300 in FanDuel is a pretty good price. And then LaFell's actually more, 6,100. Or sorry, my apologies. Amendola is 4,000 in DraftKings and 6,100 in FanDuel. LaFell's 4,300 in DraftKings, 6,900 in FanDuel. So we're seeing guys that are going to get a ton of targets. At least 8 targets for both of them. I mean, Amendola had 10 catches last week. I don't have his targets right in front of me. And the way that Brady's played against Buffalo and really, frankly, against everyone else, for their low prices, I mean, in DraftKings, 8,300 is as much as you pay for one guy, and you can play both of these guys and get a lot of production. So I really like this stack this week. And it's Monday night, and it's always fun to watch your guys on Monday night win you a lot of money.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, there's a lot of things wrong with your argument, but I'm going to cover them in another segment. So, I think the Pats will put up a lot of points, and they did spank the shit out of the Bills last time they played. Granted, that was in week 2, but that was also when Buffalo was playing good defense. They are not playing good defense anymore. While they're not terrible plays, they're not great plays, and I will reveal the error of your ways in the next segment. That's all I got.
You don't want to give away the big secret of maybe somebody else that Brady will throw to. How will we ever figure out who that'll be?
Well, I just think that yes, Danny Amendola had 10 catches last week, but that was because Edelman left the game. He left mid-game. It's not like they game planned to get Amendola those touches. They just shifted Amendola into Julian Edelman's role, and that is not what Bill Belichick will do. Amendola is not built for that type of volume, literally or figuratively.
He looks the same as Edelman. When I see him out there, I'm like, wait, is that 11 or 8?
He is literally 3 inches shorter than Julian Edelman, and Julian Edelman
is he really 3 inches shorter?
Tiny man, yeah. He's 5'7". He's got maybe half an inch on Skulls.
I didn't know
he's a tiny man.
Wow.
Yeah. Huh. At least Edelman can look at 6 foot. He's not there, but he can look at 6 foot.
On his tippy toes.
Yeah. On his parents' wall.
Best quarterback in the league. You have 2 guys he's thrown to that are.
I just think that those targets are going to go someplace completely different. Yes.
Who will it be?
That's the wrong segment. Come on, stick with me here. I think LaFell is a good play just because LaFell is. Brady loves LaFell, and LaFell is getting the ball rolling with his cover level and shaking the rust off that he's had. But Amendola. Everybody's talking up Amendola this week. I think that's the wrong play. If you play Amendola, you're going to be so pissed off. Unless you listen to me, then you'll be very happy because I'm saying don't play Danny Amendola.
And spend all that money on one player.
Nope. I have a cheaper player than Danny Amendola. Good segue. And that is, I'm going to go with a wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I know everyone's talking about this wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles that has this great rapport with Mark Sanchez because Mark Sanchez is now the starting quarterback for the Eagles. But it is not Jordan Matthews that I'm going to advocate. It is Nelson Aguilar. That is right, Nelson Aguilar. I'm going to tell you the reason. So last year, when Sanchez had to come in for an injured Nick Foles, him and Jordan Matthews had this huge rapport, and Jordan Matthews went on a tear. But the reason for that was because they were both scout team. They were both on the scout team together, so that's how they developed that rapport. Jordan Matthews was not a starter last year. That's why he was on the scout team. Jordan Matthews has been a starter from day 1 this year. You know who's not been a starting wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles this year? That is Nelson Aguilar. So
he's a starting wide receiver.
He was for week 1, but then he's been injured, so he's been scout.
Oh, so they've had Huff and
Cooper. Yes, and Miles Austin.
Okay.
So who has been the scout team wide receiver? It's Nelson Aguilar. Who's been the scout team quarterback? It's been Mark Sanchez. So the same argument that everyone's making for Jordan Matthews needs to really be applied to Nelson Aguilar this week, because with the added rushing read option ability of Mark Sanchez, the ever nimble Mark Sanchez, that's going to open up things. Nelson Aguilar is a fast man. They're going to be deep. At least there will be at least 4 deep targets, and deep targets I'm talking over 40-yard passes in the air to Nelson Aguilar. This is going to be a huge week. Nelson Aguilar came in as a very highly touted rookie. He's not lived up to expectations because of the aforementioned injuries that he sustained in the preseason, but this is going to be his breakout week. Get in now, because for the bottom price of $3,300 on DraftKings, I am telling you, this is all profit, ladies and gentlemen, all profit, because once Darren Sproles makes a 20-yard run, they run a read option, Sanchez is going to pull it back, Aguilar is going to be wide open 50 yards down the field, boom, 6 points.
I'd rather play Freddie Mitchell or Hank Baskett
Fuck
this
off,
week.
Freddie Mitchell.
I mean, give me a break.
Hey,
and 3,300 for a guy
26, Freddie Mitchell.
who's really a bust. I mean, you talk
He's
about
a bust.
You talk about the
9
players.
games into his career, he's a bust.
Yeah,
I'm Jameis Winston.
And here's why. 9 games into his career, he started week 1 and he hasn't started since. As the person on the other side of the couch said. And who's starting for him? Riley Cooper, Josh Huff, and Miles Austin. Like retreads and barely.
Josh Huff is a second-year player. How is he a retread?
Give me a break. Josh Huff actually, I'd rather play Josh Huff in this matchup, and to be honest,
I think Josh Huff is a strong player as well. But I think because
is Josh Huff the same price, or it can't be that much more.
Josh Huff is $500 more actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But because of the practice squad or the scout team squad reps that Sanchez and Aguilar have been getting together, I think that is the strong wide receiver play. I think Jordan Matthews does have a strong game. However, I think that you're paying way too much for Jordan Matthews based on last year's performance. Don't chase last year's or last week's stats.
Or any stats for Nelson Aguilar, really, because he hasn't done anything. And I want to say, if you want to play somebody from the Eagles, good luck. I think there's only one person on the Eagles ever to play any week, and that's Jordan Matthews based on his matchup.
Only one player ever to play any week.
Any week, yeah, because of the brilliance of Chip Kelly. They spread the ball around. Nobody's a target monster, and nobody gets a ton of touches. DeMarco Murray, they spread the ball out between Sproles and Ryan Matthews when he's healthy. They have a lot of wide receivers that they like to mix in. They even have multiple tight ends they like to use. We saw Brent Selleck have a good week last week.
Zach Ertz had a good week last week as well.
Well, this is what I'm saying, is that they spread the ball around a lot. And once again, here we go. Bucks, top 10 defense. 9th against the run, 10th against the pass.
What's the Bucks record?
The same as the Eagles, 4-5.
Four wins for a top 10 defense. Wow, those stats don't make sense.
Your Eagles have the same record.
I've never said the Eagles are a top 10 defense.
Well, the stats don't lie.
Apparently they do.
Stats don't lie, and the Bucks are a top 10 defense. If you saw them just shut down Matt Castle and Darren McFadden last week in a hobble.
You're right.
In a hobble.
I'm going to shut up now. I've been proven wrong. I apologize. I've seen the error of my ways.
Look, 3,300. Yeah, cheap price for a reason.
Yes.
I would rather play Dontrell Inman for 3,000. Who's the second receiver on a team with the second highest passer.
I'm telling you, he's going to hit a touchdown this week. He's going to hit a home run touchdown, and if he does, that is going to triple his price.
You might as well play Tyler Lockett.
He's going to triple his price. Triple.
This is a complete home run play. Do not listen. I plead you. Just anybody. Miles Austin could have that.
Have I been mocked by this gentleman before for low-end plays? Have they all, literally every single of my low-end plays paid off for you? Yes, they have. So I'll leave you to make the decision.
I got about 3 months worth of.
I don't need a judge to let you know.
But And usually you don't pick low-end plays. You're like, I really like Julio Jones this week. Yeah, this guy. Come on. Who really
Garrett Blunt 3 touchdown game. Garrett Selleck 2 touchdown game. Come on now. Eli Manning.
Kirk Cousins last week.
Eli Manning 6 touchdown game.
Tim Wright.
All picks I were mocked for.
Pick.
3 picks I was mocked for. Literally 16 touchdowns.
Give me a break. Eagles Bucks. This is the best and worst thing that's ever happened on the couch. Surely.
There might not be a show next week.
Probably not. if one of us ends up dead, you know who did it.
Half the couch will be burnt. It'll be live from the Lazy Boy next week.
All right. So if there is a next week, we hope to see you there. I'm Curtis.
I'll be here next week, and I'm Joel.
And we will possibly see you.
I'll see you next week on the couch.
See ya.
Fly, Eagles, fly.